Hello everyone, welcome to the INE Express Courses. I'm Li Xiaoxuan from the Member Services and Investor Education Department of INE. Today, we will focus on the overseas participation modes of INE and the relevant comparisons. Before today's course, let's look at this disclaimer first. We'd like to emphasize that both domestic and overseas laws and regulations may be changed, and continuous attention is required. We will start with the questions that have drawn most attention from the market. The first question is, what are the major trading participants of INE? Currently, overseas traders can participate in China's capital market in various ways, such as Shanghai Hong Kong Stock Connect, Shenzhen Hong Kong Stock Connect, as well as QFII and RQFII Essential. Today, we'll focus on the futures market and in particular, the participation modes of overseas traders in trading on INE. Before we introduce the particular trading entities, let's look at some basic concepts in China's futures market. The first concept is member. A member is a for-profit legal person or an incorporated organization which is duly registered in the Chinese mainland and approved by the exchange to engage in futures trading activities at the exchange, pursuant to the relevant laws, regulations, and other provisions in relation to futures trading activities in China. INE's members can be divided into futures firm members, FF members, and non-futures firm members, non-FF members. The exchange may set up special members if it is necessary for trading, clearing, and settlement, or other businesses. Here, the key words for the concept of member are duly registered in the Chinese mainland. The second concept is overseas trader. As stipulated in the interim measures for the administration of overseas traders and overseas brokers' engagement in the trading of specified domestic futures product, the interim measures for short, an overseas trader refers to legal person or other economic organization duly established outside the jurisdiction of China, or a natural person legally possessing foreign citizenship who engages in the futures trading and is liable for the consequences of such trading. In other words, overseas traders are the investors that engage in the trading. Overseas brokers refer to a financial institution duly incorporated outside the jurisdiction of China, who is qualified to accept funds and trading orders from the traders and conduct the futures trading in its own name, and who is approved to do so by the futures regulatory authorities of its host country or region, also as stipulated in the interim measures. In INE's rule system, the most common overseas participants include overseas special participants, overseas intermediaries, and overseas clients. Overseas special participants, OSPs, are overseas entities that meet the qualifications prescribed by the China Securities Regulatory Commission, CSRC, and INE, and are approved by INE to directly engage in trading with INE, including overseas traders that directly conduct trading on futures exchanges and overseas brokers that directly engage in trading with INE. OSPs are classified into two categories: overseas special brokerage participants, OSBPs, and overseas special non-brokerage participants, OSNBPs. Overseas intermediaries are overseas brokers that do not directly engage in trading with INE, but authorize futures firm members or OSBPs to carry out trading and clearing. Finally, a client is a natural person, legal person, or an incorporated organization domiciled in or outside of China, which authorizes future firm members, OSBPs, overseas intermediaries, or other authorized institution to conduct futures trading and bear the trading results. Clients include domestic and overseas clients. As we can see from this slide, we divide the participants based on whether they have direct access to trading on INE. On the left side, we can see that futures firm members, non-futures firm members, OSBPs, and OSNBPs have direct access to trading, while on the right side, domestic clients, overseas clients, and overseas intermediaries have indirect access to trading. Next, let's have a look at the statistics of major trading participants of INE. By the end of August this year, INE has 149 members and 8 non-futures firm members. In terms of overseas ones, INE has 1 OSBP and 63 overseas intermediaries. Currently, there is no OSNBP, but some entities are pretty interested. Relevant businesses are still underway, so the stats will be updated accordingly. It's worth mentioning that 64 overseas entities have registered with INE as OSBP or overseas intermediaries, covering 9 countries and regions, including Hong Kong, Singapore, the United Kingdom, Japan, South Korea, Netherlands, Thailand, France, and Germany, which covers a wide range of territories. Besides, currently, most applicants for OSPs are from Hong Kong and Singapore, mainly because we have close regulatory relationship with these 2 regions. We will elaborate on that in later slides. Now, let's move on to the second question. What are the major participation modes? First of all, let's look at this flowchart. On the left side is the domestic participation mode, which is the same as the domestic market. But please note that for specialized product listed on INE, the eligibility requirements shall apply to both domestic and overseas traders. On the right side is the overseas participation mode, in which most of you are interested. First of all, we provide 4 participation modes for overseas traders as follows. Mode 1, overseas clients can trade through futures firm members. Mode 2, overseas clients can trade through overseas intermediaries that have carrying brokerage business with futures firm members or OSBPs. Mode 3, overseas clients can trade through OSBPs. OSBPs can directly trade at INE but have to settle and deliver through futures firm members. Mode 4, overseas clients can directly trade as OSNBPs. Please note that when connecting to INE, the black arrows are for members, which means direct trading, settlement, and delivery, whereas the brown arrows are for OSPs, which mean direct trading, but settlement and clearing need to go through futures firm members. In terms of the coding rules for members or OSPs, when INE and SHFE have the same member, in principle, the last 3 digits of the code will remain the same. The code of domestic members begins with 8. The code of OSPs begins with 7. And overseas intermediaries will be given a 5-digit code. This flowchart is basically the same as the previous one, but the focus is on members, OSPs, and overseas intermediaries. As we can see from this chart, futures firm members can accept both domestic and overseas clients. OSBPs or overseas intermediaries can only accept the authorization of overseas clients rather than domestic clients. Moreover, both futures firms and OSBPs can establish carrying brokerage business with overseas intermediaries. Attention should be given to the following points. In principle, OSPs cannot participate as overseas intermediaries at the same time. Vice versa. Overseas intermediaries can accept the authorization of overseas clients and need to sign the carrying brokerage agreement with futures firm members or OSBPs and then file with INE. An overseas intermediary may authorize multiple futures firm members or OSBPs as its carrying brokers, but it shall not authorize a client to more than 1 futures firm member or OSBP. In principle, non-futures firm members and OSNBPs shall not participate as clients through other brokers. Here are some tips for participating at INE. Since INE is an international platform, overseas brokers and traders will inevitably involve other countries or regions. Therefore, when various parties are involved, cross-border regulatory cooperation is of great importance. First of all, at the regulatory level, CSRC released the interim measures in 2015, and by the end of 2019, CSRC has already signed 80 MOUs with regulatory authorities from 64 countries and regions. At the exchange level, we also formulated self-regulatory business rules on overseas participants and have completed overseas registration in accordance with the requirements in relevant countries or regions. Domestic futures firms also need to comply with laws and regulations on financial regulation in overseas jurisdictions while conducting relevant businesses. Currently, INE has obtained the qualification for Automatic Trading Services, ATS, issued by Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission, Hong Kong SFC, in March 2018, and has also been approved as a recognized market operator, RMO, by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, in November 2018. Consequently, INE can duly conduct relevant market activities in Hong Kong and Singapore, and can also attract OSPs in these two regions. This is why most of the applicants for OSPs and who are interested are concentrated in Hong Kong and Singapore. Moving forward, we will gradually complete registration in Europe and the USA according to the market development. When domestic futures firms are conducting business, or when relevant overseas entities are conducting business with domestic futures firms, such firms also need to comply with the relevant contract guidelines released by the CFA, China Futures Association. For example, when onboarding overseas clients, futures firms need to comply with the guidelines on the futures brokerage contract and the guidelines on the supplementary agreement on the futures brokerage contract in overseas traders' engagement in specialized domestic futures products. When accepting the authorization of OSPs, domestic futures firms need to refer to the guidelines on the authorized clearing agreement between domestic futures firms and overseas special participants. When accepting the authorization of overseas intermediaries, domestic futures firms need to refer to the guidelines on the futures brokerage contract, applicable to the situation when overseas brokers authorize domestic futures firms to engage in domestic futures trading. All the above materials can be accessed on the official website of China Futures Association. Next is the fourth question. What are the differences and the similarities among different participation modes? First is about qualification. In terms of region, the Futures Regulatory Authority of the country or region where the OSBPs and overseas intermediaries are located must have signed MOU with CSRC. Number two, in terms of the available funds, since specialized products have eligibility requirements, a domestic or overseas institutional client must maintain a minimum balance of 100,000 RMB or its equivalent in foreign currency in its margin account. To trade crude oil futures, the requirement is raised to 500,000 for an individual investor and 1 million for an institutional investor. Third, for OSPs and overseas intermediaries, the main requirements are on net capital or net asset. Number four, in terms of experience, both overseas intermediaries and OSBPs shall have been in continuous operation for at least 2 years. Fifth, in terms of qualifications, overseas intermediaries and OSBPs must have qualification in futures brokerage business. Number 6, for OSPs, we further require that a domestic contact entity or contact person must be designated. Finally, OSPs must have staff with the qualification certificate for futures practitioners in China. For an overseas proprietary trader, which one shall they choose, OSNBPs or overseas clients? First of all, OSNBPs have direct access to trading at INE. In terms of position limit, a fixed amount position limit is applicable to traders. But the client of the futures firms or OSBPs will, under special circumstances, when position in a contract reach a certain standard, be subject to a proportion-based position limit of its account opening institution. The clients of overseas intermediaries may, under special circumstances, be influenced by the position limit of the overseas intermediaries it authorizes or by the carrying broker of the overseas intermediary. Of course, in normal conditions, such circumstance will not be triggered. In principle, OSNBPs cannot open accounts as clients, but clients can open accounts through multiple account opening institutions under prescribed conditions. In terms of the opening of the non-resident account, or NRA, clients of OSBPs and overseas intermediaries do not need to open NRA. OSNBPs need to independently develop an IT system or purchase such system. Of course, INE will also provide free trader software. The qualification requirements for OSNBPs have already been introduced in the previous slides, so I will not go into further details. For brokers, which one shall they choose, OSBPs or overseas intermediaries? First of all, the client information of OSBPs can be within OSBPs themselves. The client information of overseas intermediaries can also be within themselves. And their carrying broker, be it a futures firm or an OSBP, will not have the client information of the overseas intermediary. OSBPs have direct trading access on INE. An OSBP can only authorize one futures firm to conduct the carrying clearing business, whereas an overseas intermediary can authorize multiple futures firms or OSBPs as its carrying brokers. An OSBP or an overseas intermediary that authorizes a futures firm as its carrying brokers need to open an NRA. An overseas intermediary that authorizes an OSBP as its carrying broker does not need to open an NRA. An OSBP can be the carrying broker of the overseas intermediary, but an overseas intermediary cannot be the carrying broker of other overseas intermediaries. Regarding the carrying brokerage or clearing agreement, as long as one of the parties is a futures firm, the guidelines of China Futures Association should be referenced. The last question is, what are the relevant procedures for filing or application? First is the application procedure for OSPs. The applicant for OSPs should submit the application for OSP qualification, and INE will review the application and finally issue the notice of either admission notice or explanation for not approving. Relevant application materials can be found on the INE website. When the application is approved, the applicant needs to complete the admission procedure for OSPs within 90 days, such as signing agreement with INE, obtaining the OSP qualification certificate, complete the clearing agreement filing. Operations Department will open access to the member service system for OSPs. The users of member service system include futures firm members and OSPs. OSPs need to submit a letter of commitment to the Trading Management Department while applying for the trading access. Open user account to the Standard Warrant Management System. Open operator access to the regulatory information platform of the member service system. Provide relevant information on the market data system being used. Next is the filing procedure for overseas intermediaries. Usually, when an overseas intermediary chooses a futures firm or OSBP to sign the carrying brokerage agreement, the futures firm or OSBP should submit the filing application to INE as an applicant. INE will review the filing materials and issue a formal letter. When the filing of carrying brokerage business with INE passes the review, the applicant, the futures firm or OSBP, also need to complete relevant filing procedures. Many include collecting the U-key of the Overseas Intermediary Service System. Please note that the U-key is valid for 3 years. Before its expiration, the holder needs to log into the system and update the U-key so that the U-key can continue to be used. If U-key is not used timely, it cannot be used after expiration. The Operations Department will open access to the Overseas Intermediary Service System. Also, submit the application form of hedging and arbitrage trading operator to the Trading Department. Applying to the Delivery Department for opening account at the Standard Warrant Management System. Applying to the Market Compliance Department to open operator access to the Regulatory Information Platform of the Member Service System. Provide relevant information on the Market Data System to the Information Management Department. That's all for today's presentation. I hope you found this presentation useful and helpful. Here is my contact information, and you can reach me via this email address. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.